Thank you, Giovanni, for that. Good morning, everyone. We will continue to hopefully see more folks join the call, but just wanted to thank you all for joining us. This meeting is being recorded, and we have a little bit shorter of a meeting today. And so, hopefully we don't, you have some additional time for your day. I know everyone's super busy right now. And so let me start with team introductions. And by the way, anyone that is joining for the first time, or maybe, this is, just your first or second meeting, if you don't mind, put your information in the chat there, your name, your title and organization. And we'd be so thankful if you would do that for us. I see some new faces here, so thank you all for joining us. My name is Stella Ursua, and I am the Senior Programs and Partnerships Manager for Grid Alternatives, the LA office. And this is our Workforce Development Advisory Committee, or WDAC, for the month of July. And again, we're so excited that we're able to meet you all, to continue to provide you with updates around the e-truck project. And so why don't we go ahead and get started? Let's go to team introductions. All right, so first off, we'll start with the Grid Alternatives team. And so if you wouldn't mind, Shamika, just a real quick introduction, because we know we're going to spend more time with you at the end of the presentation here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shamika Dixon, and I'm the Director of Workforce Development here at Grid Los Angeles.
Thank you, Shamika. And Giovanni?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Giovanni Hernandez, Clean Mobility Program Manager with Grid Alternatives of the Greater Los Angeles office as well. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Giovanni. How about the CalSTART team, please?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Swanchi. I'm a project manager here at CalSTART. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Good deal. And let's see, who else is Giovanna?
Hi, I'm Giovanna Escamilla. I'm an associate project manager at CalSTART, and I'm glad you all joined us.
Very good. How about anyone else from CalSTART? I'm sorry. No? Okay. All righty. Good deal. And from the EPRI team, Electric Power Research Institute.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Bush. I'm an engineer scientist too with EPRI's electric transportation team. And thank you for joining the call.
Thank you, Kristen. If you can turn your volume up just a little bit, that would be really helpful.
Let's see. Is it better now?
Yeah, a little bit better. Yes.
A little.
Can you do that one more time? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, if you weren't able to hear me before, apologies. My name is Kristen Bush. I'm an engineer scientist too with EPRI's electric transportation team. And thank you all for joining the call today.
Thank you, Kristen. Anyone else from EPRI? Can't see everyone right now. All righty. Well, I think we have everyone. And so thank you again for being here. I missed the meeting agenda. Let me just do that real quick. Giovanni, if you could go back to that slide real quick. We're going to do a project and WDAC overview, then an overall project update segment. We're going to have a presentation from Grid Alternatives. We've talked a little bit, in our roles on the e-truck project, but we thought this would be a perfect time to bring in our workforce development team. And so you'll hear from Shamika and from our VP, Adewale Ogunbadejo, about some of the work that Grid is doing around this project and around other projects in general, workforce development opportunities. Finally, we'll have a little discussion, feedback, and then go over next steps for the project. Okay, so project overview, and that would be, that would be Tuan. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Hi, everybody. So as you know, this is the e-truck project. The purpose is to create a California research hub to facilitate and accelerate the electrification of the medium and heavy duty drayage vehicle market in key areas. There are several goals and objectives that comes with this project. The first is to advance research, development, and demonstration activities that extend the delivery range of large weight class battery electric trucks, beginning with drayage operations. The second is to engage broad stakeholders with a community first approach and to use this input to promote equity and workforce development opportunities in priority communities, communities like pollution burden and impacted communities, and also truck fleets, charging equipment service providers, electric utilities, and planning agencies. So that's why we have all 4 committees here. The last is to plan, design, and deploy innovative, scalable public corridor charging strategies for medium and heavy duty electric trucks, again, beginning with drayage trucks. And I'll pass it back to Stella.
Thank you, Tuan. And so for anyone that's new to our WDAC meetings, and to any of the advisory committee meetings, we like to just review our goals, objectives, and function for the e-truck project. And so the goal for WDAC is to ensure that pollution impacted, underserved, and tribal communities are involved in creating and guiding the initiative, and that these priority communities are involved and benefit from the larger clean energy transition, medium duty, heavy duty electrification, the jobs that are created, and other resultant economic opportunities. So that's our goal. The objectives: we want to inform the project on workforce development needs and desired impacts for our priority communities. We want to communicate project activities to relevant key partners and stakeholders, promote equity and workforce development opportunities in priority communities, and foster workforce development partnerships in the targeted priority communities for ZE freight corridor technology and development, planning, and job creation. And finally, the function is to provide input. The function of this advisory committee: provide input on our workforce development plan, support the equity and workforce development goals of the project, and then inform the workforce plan and accompanying activities. So just a real quick overview. I know that some of you that have been joining us from the very beginning, you probably know this by heart, but this is more for our new members. If you have any questions, by all means, you can contact me, you can contact Giovanni, or any of the CalSTART EPRI team as well. So I'm going to hand this back over to Tuan to give us an overall project update. Tuan?
Great. Thank you, Stella. So the first update is regarding the CBO stipend opportunity. So as you know, we presented a paid stipend opportunity application where selected CBOs can work with us to help support some of the community engagement and workforce development activities. So we have closed the applications, and right now we are selecting the top 3 applicants for each category. There are a little bit of delay in this because there has been some project extension and in regards to the timeline. So we're working on the collaboration timeline piece of the CBO, but we're expecting to announce our selected CBOs very soon. Next, we have the industry partner webinar series. So last month on June 20th, we had our first of the series about ZEV 101 that is recorded. We have notes on this, and all of this will be posted on the website within the next couple of weeks. Next, we have another task with the project is the Southern California Fleet Needs and Maturity Assessment. We conducted interviews with truck OEMs, and all of these results are finalized, and we have a report that we'll be posting on the website. We'll make the announcement via email to you all once that's available, so you guys can read that. And next, regarding our open access research and development testing lab, we have a equipment delivery tracking for Q4 of 2023. our partner Burns and McDonald's began designing sketches for the installation of the equipment. And then for the actual lab itself in the city of Pomona, we are still getting approval from the city, but we're expecting to start construction in late July or early August with 4 to 5 months of construction. And next, regarding the pilot deployment site. So as you know, we are working with 2 companies, MHX and TAs, to launch our pilot sites there. We're still signing the host agreements for that. So that's still in the works. And then lastly, regarding our technology transfer activities, we will be launching our social media in late July. We're just finalizing a few details for our first couple of posts on our social media, but we're expecting to launch that. And if you scan the QR code on the bottom right corner, you'll have access to links to all of our platforms, websites, and things like that. So if you have any questions, I can take them now, or we can follow up with you later.
Yeah, this is Michael Rendler. I have a quick question for you. We're working on a project in Kansas City. Burns and McDonald are part of the team. It's called the Smart Corridor. It's a Justice 40 project. And my question is, this lab, how open is this communication across the United States in the Justice 40 initiative, the infrastructure bill, $1.4 trillion?
I don't have the answer to that right now, but I can follow up with you if anybody on the EPRI team can answer that.
It appears, not to interrupt, but it appears that this initiative of building smart corridor electrically charged for distribution of product across the United States is happening. And so I don't think it's really prudent that everybody, quote, invents the wheel. And I think because of AB 617, we're really out in front, state of California, what's happening. And so I'm just trying to figure out, you know, how we're packaging this, because I'm also working on a project in Virginia with an innovation center. And I've talked about Lacey, and, you know, everybody's trying to figure this out because the EDA, Economic Development Administration, has released this Tech Hub grant. And so this is part of what we're trying to figure out. And I really love everything you guys are up to. So I just want to figure out, how do we deploy this nationally? Because this money, 22 billion, has already been let. 40% is supposed to go, is really about your mission that you just went over. And so I'm just trying to figure out best practice. How are we pushing out best practice? I don't mean to hijack the meeting. I just wanted to put that out there as fast as I could.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Michael. That sounds great. I will follow up with you via email and we can discuss this further. But I appreciate your comment.
Thank you for that, Tuan, and thank you, Michael, for your question. You know, and we think that we're going to see a lot of that in the coming year. You know, just how do we replicate the e-truck project? How do we take it to other states, et cetera? And so Tuan will follow up with you, and we'll have contact information for all of us at the end of the presentation. So really appreciate you being here. All right. So let's move on. We have a nice little presentation that our VP of Workforce Development and our Director of Workforce Development have agreed to do for us today. We thought that it was really important to highlight the work of Grid Alternatives, because it's not just solar. Yes, we focus a lot on solar workforce and training and development programs, but we are looking at how we support all of our trainees, all of the workers out there with additional curriculum. And so we invited Adewale and Shamika to join us today. We really appreciate you being here. And so let's go ahead and start with Adewale. And if you can introduce yourself, Adewale. Let me just say one thing. Adewale is the reason why I came to Grid Alternatives almost 7 years ago. I don't know if anybody knew that, but We used to have a little nonprofit that did Earth Day events, and Adewale was always there talking about workforce development. It so intrigued me that I ended up joining a few years later. So Adewale, it's all yours. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Stella. Appreciate the kind introduction, and so happy to still be working with you after all these years. Hello, everybody. Adewale Ogunbadajo, pronouns he, him, and the current VP of Workforce Development for Grid Alternatives. And I'm based in Long Beach, California. So this work is very important to me and to the community I live in and the communities that I serve. And along with my partner, Shamika Dixon, who's our Director of Workforce Development for Grid Greater Los Angeles. So I think just a little bit of framing. I'm gonna do, I think a short presentation on where workforce development is currently at Grid. And I think just to kind of parallel as we think about what workforce development should look like in this EV space, because I think it's still a very new space. And everybody's trying to figure out what is workforce development in the EV space. I think for us to develop a solar program, a solar workforce development program, it took us well over a decade. And we're now just getting to this space where we are going for IREC accreditation. So we're getting our IBT curriculum accredited by IREC, which is really a nationally recognized mark of quality, training in the clean energy industry. And I think students, employers, funders, and other stakeholders are going to begin to increasingly look at the IREC mark to identify it as something that indicates that your program really has high quality and that there's safe training that's aligned with the industry needs. So I think when we think about like what should workforce development look like in the EV space, I think being intentional about it from the beginning is going to make a lot of sense. I think we were very organic when we first developed our training program at Grid. We were more like a Habitat for Humanity model, and people were just getting on the roof with us. But we started to see more and more people come from community colleges, more and more people come from vocational training programs. We partnered with the conservation corps and the youth builds, because we were really about access to this transition to clean energy for the local communities, and not just the technology access, but the actual training on the technology access so that people can actually work in the clean energy industry. So there's a bunch of people that's going to need to be trained, and we need to put the programs together to train the people to make sure that they're benefiting not only from, again, the technology, but also from the employment, so that there's two types of green. If you look at it, right, there's like the environmental green, and then there's the capital green that the community should also be able to tap in. So that's how I look at workforce development. So I will quickly just go through our IBT kind of program that we run at Grid Alternatives. And hopefully while I'm going through it, you can really think about what could be some of the parallels as we think about how we're going to build out an EV workforce development program. So I will share my screen in just 1 second. And then Stella, tell me when you can actually see my screen.
It's there, Adewale. Thank you.
Okay, and then let me see if I can get it. Let me make this small. And let me see if I can. There we go,
There you go.
slideshow. I'm gonna, if I can get this stuff out the way. There we
Yeah,
go.
You go
Yes.
to, yeah, there you go. There you go.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, you're
All
all
right,
good.
great. Yeah, so again, Grid Alternatives, we were an organization that was founded in 2001, and we're really about the equitable transition to clean energy that includes everyone and that everyone has access. And over the years, we've built up our workforce development program. We used to have a team leader program. Today, we have our installation basics training program, and that really manifests in two ways: the IBT 200 and the IBT 120. The IBT 200 is really our in-house program for our brick and mortar locations. And more recently, we've developed an IBT 120, which is, as we think about how we're going to scale, this is the program that's going to help us scale, not just for GRID, but with partners across the country. So why is IBT needed? Because clean energy access has a problem. Individuals in environmentally and economically disadvantaged communities lack the access, skills, relevant experience to gain meaningful employment in the booming clean energy industry. As we know, IRA is really supercharging the solar job growth and just clean energy job growth overall, with solar industry employment doubling over the next decade. It's going to call for tripling the workforce by 2035. And, you know, there's going to be over 100,000 new solar installation and developer jobs by 2032. So it took us almost a decade to get to 250,000 solar energy workers. And by 2032, it's going to call for a little bit under or over, 500,000 individuals. But the problem is that it also lacks diversity. And we really need the industry really needs to become a more inclusive employer of not just people of color, but the LGBTQ plus community, women, Native Americans, veterans, and people who were formerly incarcerated. And you can just look at some of the statistics and you can see, for example, African Americans are only 8%, or make up 8% of the solar workforce, women 30%. And we'd like to get all of these numbers. Native Americans, a dismal 1%, right? So how do we think about access? And again, not just in the solar space, but as we're moving to these other clean energy technologies, like electric vehicles. And then also, how do we connect with employers? So the hiring challenges still persist for the employers themselves. You can see the percentages of the firms that report hiring difficulty in the solar industry versus the installation sector. And 51% of solar firms noted the competition and a small applicant pool as the most significant reason for the difficulty of hiring. And then over 82% of solar firms reported that a lack of qualified talent impacts their ability to grow. And you can see some of the other statistics, but what this really calls out is diversity is not just something that we should be working towards, but diversity is also very necessary if we're to really meet our clean energy climate goals. So we have to work with diverse communities in order to bring enough workers in, to meet our climate goals. And that just doesn't include workers. We should also be thinking about how we can work with contractors as well and support the entrepreneurial spirit of these same communities. And here's just some more statistics, but again, the labor market is really not meeting the employer talent needs. So an entry-level installer should have some basic soft skills, knowledge of PV systems, and hands-on solar or construction experience. And then the EV space would be very similar. Like we need some soft skills, some knowledge of EVs, some knowledge of EVSE, and then some hands-on experience with the electric vehicle, and then the electric vehicle service equipment, and a construction background would also be very helpful. So we can create models that really become plug and play and take from other kind of workforce programming that we've built out over the years. And when you look at the value, what becomes then the value to the employers is that it expands and deepens the pipeline of qualified candidates. It increases installation capacity by reducing hiring constraints. Entry-level installers deliver higher quality work, and it improves the value, really improves the company's brand value. And then it enables streamlined and lower costs for recruiting. And I think overall, when you have a better worker, you reduce your costs, because if you have to hire again, if your workers are making a lot of mistakes on the job, all those things cost. So how is the IBT different from other workforce programs? Because we really take a holistic approach to job training by really combining the academic learning with the hands-on lab and the workshop. And then it can also include working on real projects in the field. So when you put all these three things together, I think you see a training program that is that really meets the need of the communities we serve, as well as can meet the need of the moment. What the IBT program is not is a program that trains people to become electricians, design PV systems, and conduct site assessments, or work in other areas of the solar industry like sales and marketing or the NABCEP exam. It's not an online program. It's not only academic, and it's not a multi-month or multi-year program. But it is a program that is stipended. We believe that people should earn while they learn, and there's a lot of soft skills that are learned while people are earning when they're learning. I think a lot of people that we serve do not have, some have never had bank accounts, for example. So, teaching financial literacy and working with partners that might address financial literacy or address other barriers to employment is very important. These are just some of the instructional elements. So we go from orientation to safety, to commissioning, operations and maintenance, and again, deal with some of the employment readiness. And these are actually learning modules, if you will, that we would teach in the classroom. And then we have actual skills labs where we build out these labs, whether we're working with partners or we have our own labs in-house. And again, we go from safety to construction basics, to electricity basics. And it really is a job ready program when you look at all the different pieces that come together to design our curriculum and our labs. So you deal with the hand tools, you look at things like solar 101 and electricity basics. We deal with workplace content in terms of teamwork, time management, job applications, resume writing, and cover letters. And then there's just a quick snapshot of our IBT 200. So it has an actual capstone at the end. Once they're done, they actually go through individual capstone where they have to pass a rigorous time capstone as an individual and then as a group. And that's in order to graduate with the IBT 200 certificates. And the certificates really signify that the candidate has obtained the necessary skills, including safety, construction basics, and installation and employment readiness to succeed as an entry-level installer. So our vision is really to train 500 individuals per year and connect over 85% of them with solar careers. And this is just some of the work that we've done in some of the places. So you can see we're active in California, we're active in Colorado, we're active in Nicaragua. The curriculum is available in English and Spanish. There's an example of a classroom, IBT 200 classroom, where they're learning some of those skills that we identified earlier. Some work that we've done in Nicaragua, as GRID is an international program, and really focus on women with our Nicaragua program. So when we talk about a diverse and inclusive industry, I think we have to be intentional and targeted about the work we do. And this is just our IBT 120 program. In many ways, it deals with it is the same core curriculum. It is the same labs, but it's really focused through a partnership model where we work with partners and they come in to do the recruitment and they do the job. We work with them to do the job search. And then the job retention, we work with them as well to navigate those things. But we really bring in our 10 training modules, the labs, and then the capstone project. And just like the 200, it's very industry vetted, and it offers a comprehensive combination of interactive classroom learning, hands-on lab activities that we can slot into external partnerships. It's a lighter version of the IBT 200. We really remove the real world field installation and put it as an option if it's something that can be accommodated. And I won't spend too much time there, but again, we have the classroom, we have the lab, and then we have the capstones. And then these are some of the partner requirements, but I think you have to be intentional about who you partner with. It's not just partnering with everybody. You have to pick the right partners to make sure that you can continue to maximize impact. So, program recruitment must focus on underserved and EJ communities. Wraparound services must provide comprehensive support to ensure trainee success, including but not limited to transportation, stipend, and other supportive services. Real world field installation training is, like I said, an optional component for partners to consider, but it's not critical to trainee success. And this is based on market research. I would be remiss if I did not say that we've built out our IBT program in partnership with Accenture, who helped us with a lot of technical assistance, a lot of reaching out to employers. So this really was something that had been industry vetted, and we have a number of employers that we consistently talk about while we've built out this program. And then there also has to be a focus on job placement support and direct employment with a goal of about 80%. So partnership and support, really, how do we make solar accessible for all? And in this case, how do we make EV technology and EVSE jobs accessible for all? So our goal is really to train and place hundreds of individuals into well-paying jobs that can't be outsourced, to boost local economies and generate clean, locally produced power that benefits us all. So that's job training for individuals in frontline communities, for a lack of a better word. I think there's better words than frontline. Streamline recruiting for local employers, job growth and investment in local economy, and then clean energy that benefits the entire community. So we work with mission-aligned partners to recruit job trainees from a wide range of backgrounds, with emphasis on people who have been historically underserved. And we're really creating a mission-aligned contractor network to connect our graduates to jobs with employers who share the same values as Grid. So these are just some success stories. And I won't spend too much time here, but we have seen people over the years move into clean energy careers, even to the point where they come back and they end up being recruiters for their own companies to move people. So you begin to create this whole ecosystem where we're moving people from local communities into these jobs. So I'll stop there. But again, I think this is something that took us over a decade to build out, and I think as we think about what does workforce development look like in the EV space, it's going to take a lot of partners, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some resources to put together a program that's effective, that moves the needle and moves the community forward. And I think we've begun some of that work. I was in the earlier meetings of the e-truck, REDA project. And I think some of the partners that we have in the room, like Dr. Yanez, that are experts in terms of the academics and the research, and, have been working within the county ecosystem for a long time, are going to be those key pieces to building out, a workforce development program for the EV space that is going to impact the communities that we collectively serve. So I will be quiet and take a step back. And Shamika, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add to that or anything that I missed, but yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, so before we go into Q&A, I just wanted to kind of bring things full circle, because at Grid, we have, I think, mastered the solar piece and the solar installation piece and what that looks like in terms of workforce. But just to kind of move that forward, I think we have a responsibility to make sure that we are creating access for the communities that we serve, and not just the community that Grid serves, the community that we all collectively serve. And with that, we are currently trying to put together a kind of an ecosystem around green technologies. So this is a space where we've only had a couple of meetings where we've invited various organizations, community colleges, as well as the utilities to have conversation about the green industry, how it's moving, and how can we make sure that we have access and our participants have access to the changes that are coming? Because I think if we don't get ahead of the changing green space, the communities that we serve will get locked out and left behind. So with that, we're trying to create the Green Technologies Coalition, where we are envisioning a stackable certificate kind of process where each organization will come to the table and say, hey, we offer this certificate, the utilities will offer that certificates, the employer is looking for this, and we're able to create this cohesive worker-focused curriculum. And so I think that is us being proactive and trying to make sure that we are leveraging not only ourselves and we're staying relevant, but also making sure that our communities are the same people that are working on these EV stations that are going up in their communities. And so I think just bringing all of that full circle, I agree, we understand that we cannot do everything, but we want to make sure that we're holding space to where we are able to develop these curriculums and obviously the low-hanging fruit, because there may be some skills gaps, but with that gaps and the partnership with the community colleges, we can bridge that out. And so we're just trying to look forward to where everything is going, because I think in a lot of spaces, the conversations are not being had. They're very ambiguous. We all know that the green industry is growing and is going places, but there's no real conversation around just concrete next steps and what metrics are going to look like. And so we feel like we have a responsibility to do that. And so I just wanted to add that in and bring this conversation full circle before we go into Q&A. And so if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to, ask them now.
And thank you, Shamika. And I'll add one more thing in that what you said is so relevant in that grid. We do not expect to do this at all by ourselves. We don't want to operate in a silo. When you look at the numbers of people that need to be trained for the nation to meet its clean energy goals, it's massive. I mean, you're talking about 900,000 clean energy workers are going to be needed by 2035. And I don't believe we're even halfway there. So how do you get to another 400,000, 500,000 workers? It takes many partnerships. It takes stackable programs. It takes programs that have flexibility to meet the community's needs. And it takes us all working together, bringing our strengths to the table. So I think you raised a really great point, Justin, thinking about this in a very collaborative nature.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shamika and Adewale. We have some questions for you. Just wanted to make one quick comment here. You heard everyone, the amount of time it's taken to build this curriculum out, and we're not done, right? And when we were asked to be a partner on the eTruck Retta project, we were kind of like, wow, this is something new for us. We have no idea, what electric, medium duty, heavy duty trucks look like, and the technology behind the trucks, the electric charging stations, the infrastructure that needs to be built out. But it was kind of like a flag that was drawn that says, you know what, you're doing a great job over on the solar side, but now it's time to take that next step. And so that's what we're trying to do. And so Adewale and Shamika, really appreciate all the work that you're doing to get us there. I see a hand up right now. Dr. Yanez, real quick, I'll take one question, then I'll move on. Don't want to run out of time.
Okay, no, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. I totally agree. There's so much work out there. And I even appreciate that you're going into electric because, we need help. We need to work collaboratively. And I just met a solar manufacturer. So I'm like, okay, we also want to diversify our training program over here in the San Gabriel Valley. So we're on the same, with great minds think alike.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Michael, real quick. Michael Rendler, you had your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, it took me a while to get to the mic off position. I wrote two things down that I think are really important, and you mentioned them: project delivery and something called CRM, customer relationship management. So this $55 million planning grant in the middle of America with Mark, Middle America Regional Council, he asked me, well, Michael, what do you think the first thing we can do? And I said, you need a transparent project management environment so we can see all the projects that are going on in Los Angeles, especially South Los Angeles, because there's so many pieces to this puzzle. Mm-hmm. And so I'm using the acronym SMART City with smart buildings, take smart citizens. And so, everybody doesn't have two hands. So they might have to use interfaces to do software development, but they're going to be part of this movement.
Mhm.
And so I'm just sharing that, having a comprehensive model that really looks at a CRM, customer relationship management. These are your customers. These are our customers into this $1.4 trillion project. So I just want to put that out there because I'm working with a whole bunch of people across Los Angeles, but everybody's still in their silo.
Absolutely.
And it's not up to me to connect all the dots, obviously. It's too big.
Yeah.
So whatever I can do to help, whatever we can do to help, I just want to put that in your thinking hat because you guys are super awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. And you are going to get some phone calls and emails. I'm sure of that. So be prepared. Let's do a little panel discussion. We had some questions for Shamika and Adewale, and then we'll give you time to ask some questions as well. So Adewale, real quick, why is the IREC certification important to grid alternatives and to workforce development in general?
Yeah, I think as we continue to grow out our workforce development program, again, we grew very organically in the beginning, and then we built in the intentionality to what it is today. And we want to make sure that we continue to deliver quality, right?
Mhm.
Have standards, that our brand is our brand, meaning that, if you come out of a grid alternatives training, whether it's through directly with grid or it's through a partner, that the curriculum that's being delivered is curriculum that has true value.
Mhm.
Because through true value, we know that it has real impact for the people that are touching it, the people that are receiving it, the people that are using it and moving on to jobs in the industry. I think this is becoming a more and more competitive space in terms of what training looks like. And with solar still being a relatively new industry, when you talk about the traditional industries like electrical and, even though it's a subset of electrical, but when you think about plumbing and you think about all these industries that have been around for a very long time, they have those standards. And short of the NABCEP, we do not have many standards in solar. So IREC accreditation is a way for us to kind of set the bar high for ourselves, right? I think you have to have that intentionality with workforce development, especially as you grow bigger. And we've grown much bigger. When I started with the organization, we were 40 people. Today, we're in an organization of over 400 people, and we're international. So how do you make sure that you maintain that level of quality across the board?
Absolutely. And Adewale, one more question from us. How do you see other organizations that have also received IREC certification for their curriculums? How do you see them partnering with the eTruck project?
I think that's a little bit of a tricky question. I can't say that I'm sure, but I think that again, as we think about like what does workforce development look like in this space, we should be intentional and think about building it towards something that brings in maybe IREC credentialing, which is for clean energy overall, right? I think working with the community colleges, they also are, have had standards in place for a very long time, right? So I don't know if it's necessary just specifically about IREC, but it's really about the concept of having standards as we build out the training.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Adewale. And Shamika, we have a couple questions for you. Can you talk a little bit about, how GLA is thinking about expanding workforce opportunities and our curriculum into the clean mobility sector?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the way that we're thinking about expanding is developing the Green Coalition. And so again, that is us bringing like-minded organizations, employers, community colleges, and anyone that has an interest in green technology and moving that forward. So right now, our curriculum heavily focuses on solar. So we're working with the South Bay WIB to become a pre-apprenticeship sponsor. So if you look into solar, there's no apprenticeship programs, there's no unions that quite align to solar. But if you think about the union that we would work with, we would align with IBW 11. So we've been working with the South Bay WIB to become a pre-apprenticeship sponsor so they can consider our solar program as a prerequisite to enter IBW 11. And so that has been a challenging conversation, but I think we're very optimistic in terms of making that happen. And with the support with South Bay Web. So that's one way that we're expanding. And we're also thinking just in the EV space. So we're looking at low-hanging fruit. What are those low-hanging fruits in terms of curriculum that we can develop and start to implement? Whether it is some type of EV charger maintenance, something around, manufacturing. And so I think at Grid, we've been having a lot of conversation of how we can expand our curriculum in that space. So I really think that we're in a space of innovation when I think about Grid GLA, and we have a powerhouse team right now. In addition to that, we have great partners who's helping us push this forward. So I think this ecosystem that we're developing with Dr. Yanez and a couple of other folks that are on this call and many other folks that are not, I think that we're in a good space to just expand what we're doing in LA. And then specifically for Grid, like I said, we're trying to get that pre-apprenticeship going and as well as some low-hanging fruit around curriculum. So that is what we're thinking in terms of expansion and making sure that we are, bringing access to our participants.
Absolutely. And Shamika, one more question. Just, as we talk about incorporating new curriculum into our training program, how do we make sure that it's worker focused and it supports the creation of a green economy and the increasing demands for a skilled workforce in this sector?
I think we make sure that it's worker focused by having the correct people at the table, because when you think about worker focused, it's hands-on, it's industry skills, as well as partnerships. And so I think a lot of the times when people create curriculum, they don't really look at the skills gaps of the people that they're at the demographic that they want to participate in this particular program that they're creating. So I think with us, anytime we have the discussion about curriculum, we make sure that we have an industry partner, we have a community college, and we have another nonprofit, a like-minded nonprofit at the table. So when we're creating this curriculum, it's very worker focused. And I think that is the only way to probably create healthy curriculum for the communities that we service. And I think a lot of us experience the same challenges in terms of we create these programs and then we don't have anybody that participates in them. And I really feel it's because we're not making them relatable to the communities that we're serving. So that's why we are very big on the worker focused curriculum here at Grid, and also implementing that in any projects that we do with anybody else.
Awesome. Thank you, Shamika. And I have one more question before we open it up to the rest of the folks on the call, for both of you, for you and Adewale. What barriers exist that need to be overcome to speed up certification of new curriculum and workforce development training programs?
I think for one, just because of the industry that we're in, is the buy-in from the unions. I think that we can create a lot of these programs and we think that they're significant and we know that they're impactful, but after that, where do our participants go? A lot of our participants are interested in unions, but the access to get into these unions are challenging. Just having the relationships and creating those pipelines have been challenging. But then also with the changing industry, making sure that we're developing training programs that people have upward mobility in, because I think some training programs, it's like you train the individual for one specific thing and then they're kind of stuck, they're pigeonholed there, which I think is where we kind of get the idea, where we got the idea of like this green technologies coalition. So when this person leaves our ecosystem, they not only have a solar certificate, they have a battery storage certificate. So they have these stackable certificates, which makes them a lot more attractive when it comes to employers. So I'm thinking in terms of workforce, instead of just like saying siloed, we have to open ourselves up and give our participants access to obtain various certificates through various organizations and really creating like this pipeline to employment as well as upward mobility.
Yeah, that's great, Shamika. I agree with that. And you made me think about some of the partnerships that we've had over the years, which have been very important partnerships when you think about the idea of stacking skill sets. And I always put it in a way where if you are going out for a job, the more tools you have in your tool belt, the more likely you'll be to get that job, right? So I know, for example, we've worked with Miguel Contreras Foundation in the past, and we've worked with the Lacey Clean Tech Incubator, who does a lot of EV programming. And when individuals will come out of our programs, our IBT program, if they weren't necessarily work ready, they could go to Miguel Contreras and, get the training that Miguel Contreras are providing, or they could go over to the Lacey program and get some EV training. And that would just be one more tool in their tool belt that they would have. So I think, again, the intentionality of like, can we build these clean tech academies, if you will, that you can go to Grid to get the IBT, and you can go somewhere else and get this EV, and, and it's very worker centric, if you will, to your point, Shamika. So that it's not about Grid having all these programs and like Grid being, the center, but it's really about the worker being the center, and then us as partner organizations attaching to the worker, so that we can, help them to be as skilled up as possible, so that they can step in any industry, whether it's solar, whether it's EV, whether it's solar and storage, whatever the clean energy industry has to offer, they're ready to take on those challenges. And then the last thing I would be careful of, one word that we tried to get away from, Stella, was the word, when we think about fast and quick, and really what that can mean, and really more move towards intentionality rather than the speed of things, right? So are we doing it in a way that's intentional? Are we being meticulous? Are we really thinking the process through, not to get there fast, but to get there correctly? Because once we get there correctly, then we'll start to see the scale that we want, and then it will move rapidly. But if we just rush to get to where we're going without really taking the time to be intentional, then we might be building something that's not really of the value we want it to be. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adewale and Shamika. That was fantastic. And so let's open it up to questions from our participants here. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand, and I will try to find your hand here in between screens. I see a lot of really nice complimentary remarks from some of our advisory committee members here. Thank you, Hector. Thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your comments as well, Michael. Any other questions?
Stella, I see a comment from Jaime Lopez. And they said they were brainstorming to create a charging station technician certificate.
Yes.
I would just say one company to really look at, and maybe even reach out to is Charger Help.
Yes.
And they've created just an awesome program that they've quickly grown and scaled nationally. But I know they have some things along that way. It's Camille Terry and Yvette Ellis.
There you
the
go.
co-founders there, and they're
Fantastic.
just super
Yeah,
dynamic, and
absolutely. Thank you for that, Adewale. And yes, Mr. Jaime Lopez is the assistant professor for diesel electric transportation technology over at Santa Ana Community College. And Giovanni and I spoke to him just a couple weeks ago. And so it's very exciting, Jaime, what you're doing to prepare a curriculum for medium duty, heavy duty electric vehicles. That's fantastic. And again, as Adewale says, we can connect you to a lot of folks here that we've been working with, partners, recent partners, but partners that we've had from the onset of our workforce development efforts. Anyone else? Aaron says, amazing presentation. Curious if classes are fully enrolled and if labor unions, apprenticeship programs are supporting y'all. Really appreciate this approach, especially to earn as you learn model. I don't know if Shamika or Adewale, you want to respond?
So specifically in LA, we run 4 cohorts a year. And so we just onboarded 1, and then we have our next cohort starting in October. So if you have anybody interested, please send them our way. We don't have any real requirements beyond open to 13 weeks and interested in solar. And then we support, the individual with everything else. We have not had a lot of support from unions, our apprenticeship program, but I think we're actively trying to bridge that gap with the South Bay WIB. So I'm hoping, and I know it's nothing that's gonna happen overnight, but I'm hoping with time that we're able to have that relationship a little bit more aligned.
Mhm. Thank you. Erin, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Stella. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much for that response. And yeah, we'll do everything that we can on our end. We're meeting with a lot of unions because they recognize that there is a huge gap in the amount of people that can actually work on equipment. We're talking about solar right here, but it extends down to electric vehicle charging equipment as well. But I did want to actually ask, so I'll take a step back and zoom out a little bit. I do work for CalSTART, but not on the e-truck project per se. I'm on the incentive side. And a lot of times when we think about workforce development, what we're trying to do is get people who are applying for these incentives, right? So folks who, sorry, let me turn my video on so y'all can see me. So people who are wanting this grant money, we want those dollars to actually go back into the community, right? Like a lot of times people are like, oh, let me fly someone out from Pennsylvania to work on this. And I have nothing against Pennsylvania. I love everyone that I've ever met from there. But what about that money for the construction and the installation actually going to the people who are living there? So I guess the biggest roadblock for us is if we could link people to a space where all that lives, that would be amazing. So I see Cerritos College is on here. I believe I saw Santana as well. LATTC is present. Is there a centralized location where these programs kind of all live and I can send people there and say, hey, as you're thinking about building out your project, please check out this resource and use these folks to build that way, the money's staying here.
Yeah, and Erin, thank you for that. And Shamika, if you want to jump in, please. And that's what we're trying to do, Erin, is to bring all these different organizations to the table. We have a meeting in August. I think it's August 8th. We'd love to have you there, Erin, if you're interested. And so far we have Lacey, Miguel Contreras, my WorkSource Center, Southern California Edison, LA Department of Equal Opportunity, and I'm probably forgetting a few other folks that really are interested in trying to figure out how do we create this curriculum where it's, if I'm someone that's just starting in this field, I'm not sure I want to be a solar installer, a designer, or an electric vehicle charging station technician, where can I go, like a one-stop shop kind of thing, where I can learn about all of those different jobs and careers, right? And then I get to choose, right? I have all these stackable certificates. I've completed all this training. And so then, the organization or this coalition helps me to find the perfect, job for me. So, I mean, we're just starting this effort. So love to have you there as well.
Yeah, I'd love to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I see Sarah Fisher says we've created an EV charging station installation and maintenance training program with Cerritos College. Public recruitment coming soon. That's great to hear. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that.
Stella, I also want to say that Aaron's point is that I think it's a very good point, and we saw that a lot in solar too, to make sure that contractors are not just all coming from outside the community. And also bringing their workforce with them, that there need to be people directly from the community working on the jobs, as the investment is in those communities. I know, I worked with Michael Rendler a lot when we were doing the Watts projects, and that was, a huge concern. So they had the community benefits agreements and everything. All this stuff is very necessary, but I think we should also be thinking about not just training people to work, but also working with contractors, because I think in these communities, there's natural entrepreneurial spirit for many reasons, including historically.
Absolutely.
And how can we support contractors? Because when you look at all the work that's coming down the pipeline, you know, in order to install EV charging stations, you have to be a contractor. So we can't train somebody fast enough to be a contractor. That's a multi-year process. We can get them on that road, but there's contractors that already exist. What kind of supports can we put in place to build out these contractor networks so that they can also take care of some of these jobs as well? So
Absolutely.
we should not just be thinking about workforce as the people we're training to work, but the larger nature of workforce, including contractors.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We've gone over just a little bit, but this was such a great discussion. And so thank you, Adewale and Shamika, for stepping in here and sharing with folks what we're doing at Grid Alternatives. Really appreciate that. All right, Giovanni, take us home. Next steps.
All right. Definitely a wonderful discussion we just had. So thank you so much again, Adewale and Shamika, for taking the time and sharing all your work, experience, expertise, and applying it right to, you know, showing us how it can be applied and how we can apply and think about all the work that needs to be done in the EV space and the medium duty, heavy duty sector, and applying lessons learned as well from solar, because a lot of this is interconnected. It will be interconnected, right? There's going to be probably charging stations that will be paired with solar and with battery storage, and all of these skills are going to be interconnected. And so it's really, really exciting to hear, you know, plans for stackable certificates that can facilitate workers being able to work on all of these different equipments, right? That again are all related to one another. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone that attended today. Just wanted to give last closing remarks here. Our next WDAC meeting, our last one, a quarterly one scheduled for this year, is set to take place on October 12th, same time, 10 a.m. And then to be announced, you know, in the future, we will announce when our next quarterly webinar series, industry partner webinar series, will take place, right? We just knocked out our very first one, which was the ZEV 101. And so we're still planning out what that second one will be and when it will be, but we'll give everyone enough notice for that. And just another reminder, we will be following up with meeting summary and a copy of the presentation for folks so that you all can you know, refer to it, as well as the link to the recording of this meeting so that you can rewatch and capture what maybe we couldn't capture live during the very good discussion we had today. So with that, I wanted to also just provide our emails here of the team. Please reach out to us with any questions that you may have. There's the grid and EPRI team, and then here's the CalSTAR team. So please don't hesitate to reaching out with anything that you may have. With that, thank you all so much. I know these normally go till 11:30, but we'll give you 25 minutes more of your time. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week ahead.